Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Combat Lounge. I am your host, Phil Robinson, and I'm rolling solo today, but it's all good because today we got a special guest for you. We are doing a books sample of Being Burt Watson with Mr. Burt Watson. And without further ado, I bring to you Mr. Burt Watson. What's up, baby?
Man, I'm trying to make it, baby. You know, one
Hey,
day at a time.
they trying to get me. They trying to get
Yeah.
me.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead,
Uh-huh.
smoking Joe Frazier.
Mm-hmm. But I told
Man,
you I
you
read the
just
book
you
now. We're gonna get
yeah,
into it.
yeah, you did. You just took 30 years past me with that little saying, trying to get me. That's the last thing that man said to me.
Is it?
Uh, for history's sake.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually the last thing he said to me. Was they trying to get me, baby? And I was actually on the phone with him,
Uh-huh.
because I was in California at a show, and I was on the phone because he had asked me to do some things
Mm-hmm.
because there was a point there where I was transitioning from boxing to whatever I could do to become a coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe allowed me to do that.
Right.
He took me and introduced me to a lot of people and gave me the okay to go ahead, starting with Butch Lewis and Michael Spinks.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of gave me that flexibility. And it was in July or August or something like that I spoke to him on the phone. And he was not feeling well, but that was it to me. They trying to get me, baby. And he passed away in November. So that was his thing, and I heard it my entire career with him all the time, and I knew when it was coming. The minute somebody asked him, I knew it was coming. Trying to make it, they trying to get me, and but never knew that would be probably the last thing that I heard from him. So you just rang a bell, baby. 10 toes.
Hey, there it is, and I'm gonna keep bringing them.
Yes,
But
sir.
so you were talking about as being my age, I'm 42. So being my age and looking back at this from the fight game, you happen to be in Philly, which was the mecca of boxing,
Yes, sir.
and
From
you've seen them all.
Man, it's you said you're 42. You're 42.
Mm-hmm.
This chain around my neck is 42 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This was the first piece of jewelry I ever wore. And
Mm-hmm.
I got that maybe I'd say about 40 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I'm about that old. But
Ain't nothing wrong.
yeah, got it back then. But yeah, in Philly, being in Philly, I've got to see, you know, and I say it a lot. History has a way of making you a part of it without you asking for it,
Yes, it
without you
does.
even knowing it, and it has a way of doing that, and it did that to me because I worked with Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, and stayed in Philly and worked with Smoking Burt Cooper and Meldrick Taylor, and Boogaloo Watts and Bernard Hopkins, and at that time, and Tim Witherspoon, and I jumped across generations there, but I saw all those fighters as amateurs,
Mm-hmm.
as guys trying to get to a position. And the only one that jumped out there as a young age was Meldrick,
Mm-hmm.
because he did the Olympics and
Right.
jumped out. But everybody else, his road was tough, but he was legitimate enough and had the right people come and approach him that he was able to take that Olympic path.
Hmm.
And once you get on that path, you stay on it.
Right.
You know, that brings you out to the forefront before anybody else does.
Right.
But I always, even in college, I went to college in Nebraska, which is in my book. I went to a little school, Scottsbluff, Nebraska, where everybody or anybody that looked like me was Native American, you know. So, but I came right from Philly, man, and anybody in Philly, anybody from Philly can throw hands.
Right.
So it was so natural, but it was becoming so historic, which I had no idea that that's what was happening with all the guys that I was around and working with, and just kind of shooting the shit with, and
Oh, you can
you
say it
know,
here.
didn't really didn't realize how much history was in my presence, or that I was in the presence of, until now that I can take it and put it in a book, or read it in another book, or read
Hmm.
about it. And I can sit back and say, damn, I sat there and sent Burt Cooper home crying. And Burt Cooper was one of the baddest people that ever walked through Philadelphia, that really never ever got the recognition from Philadelphia that he should have.
Hmm.
But he was there, and that's a whole nother world, because the majority of the boxers that came through Philadelphia, uh, the recognition was tough. It was tough going and tough getting. The only thing they got was a tough reputation, because everybody knew anybody from Philly could fight. And when
Right.
you had a fight with Philly, you better bring your lunch, your ass, and everything else with you, because if you didn't take his, he was gonna take yours, baby.
Yes, sir.
And
And
every,
you was gonna
and
be
every
there for a minute.
straight up, and everybody knew that. Uh, but the recognition went more to, I don't want to say Hollywood, but it was more on the Olympics, or guys coming out of the West Coast area per se. Thank God for Joe Frazier, uh, giving Philadelphia and Philadelphia boxers a platform that, if it had not been for him and the memory of him, and anytime they directed any type of media towards a Philadelphia fighter, that was the first thing that they mentioned. They started with the history of Smoking Joe Frazier,
Hmm.
and that was quite an era, baby. That was something that I will never forget, as long as I'm able to remember it. It was definitely off the charts, my man.
I believe it, because anybody who knows anything about boxing knows that going being there in Philly during those times when everybody was coming through, and just seeing the continuation of the skill of the fighters that come out of Philly. They got
Yes.
a whole style. You don't hear about a California style. You don't hear about a Texas style. Mayweather style doesn't even have it. Even is a version of the Philly shell.
You know what? Philly created the style. You mentioned style. You know that whole slip, pick and roll, that whole thing. That's all Philly, baby. And
Hmm.
it went into boxing, but shit, that was the way Philly people walked.
Right.
Okay, that was they strolled in a movement. You know what I mean? They
Hmm.
swayed. Even myself now, it's very hard for me to stay still and talk to somebody.
Hmm.
My animation is so much my Philly background, and it was back in my day, the heyday. Everybody, you had to fight, and you had to know how to fight. I'll reverse that. You had to know how to fight. Not that you had to fight, but you had to know how to fight,
Right.
because it wasn't people weren't fighting every day, or fighting people just to be fighting. If you went from one neighborhood to another, you had to earn your way into that neighborhood.
Right.
And the way you got to that neighborhood was with these, and if you weren't in that neighborhood, very seldom did you see a fight in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
And when you did, it was because a whole gang of guys came from one neighborhood to another, and then you had what was then called a gang war.
Right.
That's where that came from. But it was all hands,
Mhm.
nothing else. But it was all hands. So it when I left Philly to go to college and go into the Marine Corps and started to travel around a little bit, every time I met somebody and they asked me where I was from, or it was mentioned where I was from, first thing they would say, "Oh shit, I know you can fight." That's the first thing they say. "Oh
I
shit,
know
I
you
know
got
you.
hands.
I know
Yep.
you got hands."
Yeah.
And you know what? And I'm like, and in my head, yeah, I got hands.
Yeah.
But that, it was common. You didn't
Mhm.
leave Philly without hands.
Right.
You didn't grow up through the neighborhood without throwing hands or having hands. But it was, and I'm talking to you, Phil, and it's kind of flipping in my head how
Mhm.
controlled it was, because everybody knew they had hands and you got tested. And if you had to test somebody, somebody would say, "You know what? I don't like this person," or yada yada yada. We gonna meet Friday afternoon in Carroll's Park at 2 o'clock. Guys from 54th Street and guys from 61st Street all got together, met in Carroll's Park for them two guys to get together and
Mhm.
throw it down. And when it was over, guess what? It was over. One group went his way and one group went the other way. Uh, Today's a little different.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Shit.
had it been like that, I probably would have did more fighting, but myself.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It was very much controlled chaos.
right.
And that brings right in there, fits right in there. It was very much controlled chaos. But yeah, you learn real quick how to throw hands, very respectful,
Mhm.
how to fight, and that was the beginning of combat sports for my day. And it transitioned from boxing to wrestling,
Mhm.
because then professional wrestling started to come about. But it was it was not as theatrical as it is today.
Right.
It was not as much theater as it is today. But then you didn't have as good athletes as you have today, because today's professional wrestlers, they are athletes,
Ooh,
bro.
ooh,
Shit.
ooh.
You know, when I see guys that are 250 to 260 pounds do a triple, double, whatever off the top of that rope and don't kill nobody,
Right?
and get up and do this and take that microphone and start smelling what the rock is cooking,
Mhm.
I'm
I'm
like,
here to tell
whoa.
you.
I'm like, whoa. So everything had its own identity. They wrestled and they held and but they didn't throw each other like these guys
Right.
and fly around like these guys are. They were probably in good enough shape, but today's athletes, I'm amazed at the technical skill level on all levels, on all combat sports, boxing, MMA, wrestling, grappling, whatever, however they identify it,
Mhm.
and they even class it up now as combat entertainment. But whatever the technical skill level that I've seen, the progression of the technical skill level blows my mind.
It's insane.
Totally. Oh,
It's insane for just like you said, and you said you were just talking about in the ring, the acrobatics that they get that they undertake, and the fact that they're able to do this night after night. Eh, you don't see any professional athlete except for maybe a basketball player throw himself on the ground to get a ball every once in a while. These people are doing that's the game is going to the mat.
I'm not, I don't want to be quoted, but I think that professional wrestlers do a minimum of 200 shows a year.
At least.
And there's 365 days in a year. Is that right?
Mhm. 366 in leap year.
Okay. And I said a minimum.
Right.
So should I know more? I know more wrestling days than I know how many days in a year. but they do, and that, and not only that, but it's the same thing with MMA. To see, for me to see the progression, and I put, in the book where I started in MMA way back in the day. When I say way back, I can say way back because when you go past 2000, that's way back.
Yeah, it is now.
Uh, uh, when they were learning how to be MMA fighters,
Mhm.
they were creating the identity of an MMA fighter. But as I said, how in shape or how technically sound professional wrestlers are, athletes started to become technically sound in the mid to late 90s,
Mhm.
and they started picking up all aspects of it, of the sport. As I say, I go through Anderson Silva to John Jones, to Conor McGregor and all, but athletes started to develop technical. I remember, I think I did my first MMA event, maybe 90, 98, 99, maybe, and on a world stage in 2000,
Mhm.
okay, or 2001, whatever UFC 30 was. But back then, bro, they were good athletes, but when they were boxing, they were fighting like this.
Ooh.
Okay, that was the stand up.
The tiger paw?
Yeah, but I'm just telling you just how they were, and then that went to this
Uh-huh.
real quick,
Yes, it did.
and
And
it
then
just it got nice, and it got
yeah.
nicer. Then that shit started getting sweet, and now it starts with this. If you don't know how to do this, to throw hands, really throw hands, you have no game,
No.
because it very few people don't want to discredit anybody. Khabib was known specifically for that ground game of his, and once he got you in his clutches or in his hands, you was done.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
he had, I mean, that you had to go through this. You had to go through this first, but just the overall development of it, man, is something spectacular and something to behold, man. And it just, I'm amazed, men and women.
Absolutely. I'm a lot of times when I go to events as a fan and in the case that I was able to do it as media, I often enjoy the women fighting more than the men. They fight with an extra level of ferocity.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You,
Yeah.
you know,
Ooh.
And
Ooh,
you know what that is, and I'll get and most of what I say is my personal opinion, but personal opinions are to be digested.
right.
You know, men spend, and I don't care who gets mad at this. Get my book and read that shit, and then you can call me
There you go.
and tell me how mad you are. Okay, but men kind of created the trash talking.
Mm-hmm.
They created the banter, you know, and the this in your face and the that in your face. Women didn't do that. They went right at it. Okay, that's why the intensity was so high,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't talk all of it out before they got to the actual fight. And
No.
not say that everybody did that, but I'm just saying to you that the difference, in my personal opinion, was very seldom did I have, and I also, I think I did my first female fight maybe in 95, 96, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
uh in boxing. I did my first female fight. And never, no trash talking, no jabbing, no wolf selling no wolf tickets. And
Right.
anybody that don't know what a wolf ticket is,
Can't help you. Can't help you.
it was never one of those things where women, they verbally jabbed each other, and they saved it. And television never really digested that part of it because they wanted this.
And
You
it's
know,
crazy that you said that and you outlined that, because that makes complete and total sense. And as you said that, I stopped and I thought, I was like, I don't think I've ever heard women trash talk. Not like some of these men who get to running off at the mouth and
all
say
of them.
something so crazy that you have to deal with it on the spot and try to give it away for free.
It's so relevant that I could and I won't,
Hmm.
because I know that in my work with them, but I can actually name the women who trash talk.
Hmm.
And if I said that there's four of them, if I said their names, you would know them. You would know their names. And
Right.
a couple of them, you would say, you know what? Yeah, I remember, but no, very seldom they did or they didn't. I even I worked with probably one of the closest that I got to in terms of women, female fighters, uh, uh, Layla Ali.
Hmm.
And Layla didn't talk trash. Layla just said, huh? She didn't have to say nothing more than that.
I
Huh?
mean, when you gonna knock them out, no matter what do you
It's
got
like,
to say?
huh? Huh?
Yeah.
You think,
Okay.
that was it. But boy, when that bell rang, the smoke, the
Woo,
smoke, the
woo.
smoke.
Putting a pause on them.
Yeah, 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 yes, she did. And I was fortunate enough to have worked with Layla. And also, I said to you earlier, my man, how history has a way of making you a part of it without you asking for
You
it.
know it.
I'm going to go back at that again, because I was fortunate to work with Layla. I was fortunate to work with Joe Frazier. I was fortunate enough to work with Muhammad Ali. And I was fortunate enough to sit on a dais up in the Turning Stone Casino in Canastota, New York, and see Layla Ali and Jackie Frazier on a press conference on a podium like their dads. And that's something I'll never forget, to see Muhammad Ali's daughter and Joe Frazier's daughter at a press conference. And I being a part of Ali Frazier 4.
Hmm.
History doesn't give it to you that way.
No.
But that's what it was. And that was also the last time I saw Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier together like that. I did Champions Forever where I toured with them,
Hmm.
but to see those two and to see their daughters and to see history do a full circle like that, and at a time when the world of professional sports, the world of television, the world of making money said that this sport is not going to do it if we put women in it. We can't do that. We're not going to do that. They didn't know. They didn't say it. But come on. Some people you don't have to say stuff to for them to know what the hell you're talking
Right.
about or what you're
Hmm.
trying to say, you know. But they didn't. And quite a few times as I coordinated events, I saw it and I noticed it. And at times it was like, damn, how prevalent can this be? That nobody says anything or nobody tries to change it per se. And it was a very easy way to change it. It's very easy to do a fight and make somebody the main event.
Hmm.
That's the easiest thing in the world to do. But to get someone like some of the bigger networks who I'm not going to say their names, but they don't do boxing anymore.
Right.
Neither one of them. I don't want to say HBO and Showtime. I won't say that. But you don't see boxing on either one of those networks anymore. Gone, done. But at a time when women were legitimately transitioning because they could legitimately fight.
Hmm.
Christy Martin and Layla and Jackie Frazier and Ann Wolfe, and on and on. They were legitimate people trying to, or I won't say trying because they did it. But the world just didn't accept it, and they had to kick doors in. They say about breaking glass, shatter glass ceilings. I think that's the expression that they use. They had to do more than that to get in there. But when they got in there, same thing for MMA. When women started coming into MMA and Amanda started putting her hands on people, started throwing people around, it was like, you know what? We can't sleep on this. And
Nice.
one thing they are not going to do is sleep on that money.
Mm-mm. No, sir.
That's not going
No,
to happen.
sir. And in order to be great, especially you brought up Amanda, and you in that particular arena where you're trying to venture in and make a name for yourself, make a way for all the women coming behind you. You
Yes,
gotta look at what comes into that, what type of person that is, and it takes me back to something you said in chapter 5 about basically mindset versus willpower.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's my book. I I did this book as I've gone through professional sports, combat sports. I've noticed the mindset, the game plan, and the commitment of everybody, and how important that is to have those three things: the mindset, the game plan, and the commitment. Because you had to be ready to do this on all three of those levels. And a lot of people didn't know that they had to do that on those three levels and couldn't identify it as those three levels.
Right.
Until at the end of the night, when the hands were raised and that commentator put that microphone in their face, then it all came out. I had my mind right, and I had to think about it, and I had to concentrate, and there's that mindset. I'm hearing it, and then I hear them say, and my coaches worked on this, and my strength coach worked on this, and mama whoever cooked me some chitlins, whatever, whatever they did, I heard that game plan. And I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I consistently did it. And I worked out, and I started knocking out, and there was that commitment.
Right.
That mindset game plan. And I heard that religiously through every professional athlete I've ever worked with. Every one of them, one way or another, on all levels, from the biggest star to the guy that made his pro debut. It was those three things that motivated and moved. And as I thought of that and wrote of that, I also saw how that never leaves you.
No.
When you get into regular life, your job, and every day you got to have a mindset and some kind of game plan and a commitment. Because if you don't commit yourself to showing up for work, you ain't going to have a job.
No.
And if you show up without the game plan that they put in place for you, guess what?
Not gonna
You
have
ain't
one
going to have
either.
a job. And if your mindset ain't right, you're not going to have a job. So when I started thinking of those things, Phil, and how that never leaves, then I decided to put it in a book. But then again, I said, well, you know what? Burt Watson has to find a way to get people to want to read their book or read the book. So in it, I identified with fighters and people that everybody knew, like Brock Lesnar and John Jones. I did that with all those people, and Conor McGregor, that people knew, so that when I said those things, I could take it back to my experiences with those people.
Right.
And that was an easy thing to do, man. It was definitely, but that works in professional sports with every professional athlete I've ever worked with or been around. And I've been around professional athletes since March 8th, 1971. Damn, I just dated
That's a long
myself.
time.
Shit.
That's a long time. I wasn't gonna say that, but that's a long time.
Yes, sir. Since March 8th, 1971, I sat to watch Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier at Madison Square Garden. That was my intro.
Wow.
That was my intro into, because I'm 76. There was a time when you only heard athletes on a radio, and you had to listen. You didn't see it; you had to listen. So you never even really knew what they looked like.
Right.
And as time went on, then it started changing. So when I had my first shot in 71, to see that, it was like, whoa. So I got to see it. And one thing led to another, and Joe and I eventually got together, and the rest is in this book. But Joe and I got together, and we kind of never it never went in another direction. But today it's a whole different world. It's a whole different thing that people enjoy it. Enjoy what you're seeing, but know what you're seeing. You might not ever see it again. So don't take it for granted.
No, that's
You
right.
know, don't take the I won't say we won't ever see it again, but we will never see anything like a LeBron James again. Okay, at his age, where he is. I said that with George Foreman, and guess what?
Haven't seen one since.
And won't. Okay, I said that with Joe Frazier, and guess what? You won't see another one. Not another one. And people say it, and then people come along, and I said that about LeBron James, and somebody's probably going to listen to this and say, about MJ, Michael Jordan, not Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
But they're different. You have to remember the times, but appreciate what you see.
Yes.
There's a big difference. You don't forget what was there, but you appreciate what you see, and appreciate what you see right now, because that is your history, and that is your life to tell. Anything I wrote in this book, I didn't read in a book. I lived it. And I know I've been giving some shameless plugs on my book.
And give it one more.
But I say it all the time when I talk to fighters. Oh, look what my man got there. I say it to fighters all the time to say to them without thinking, and not shamelessly, but I say to them, and I didn't read that in a book. And they know what I mean when I say that. When I say that to them, or any athlete, that what I just said to you, or what I'm saying to you now, damn it, I didn't read in a book. Your night, your fight, get it right, I'm done. That kind of thing, they know exactly, because they know that I know. Dang, nothing like taking that walk, baby. Nobody knows what it's like to be with that fighter from the time they get off that scale and go back to their room, beat the hell down from making weight, from cutting weight, and from the tension and the anxiety of a weigh-in. I feel it when they walk by me. I smell it when they walk by me. I hear it when they walk past me when they're done. And then they get maybe a half an hour to eat. But you never know that. They get that one little half an hour to eat. And they may eat it. They may eat because, number one, their stomach, maybe or may not. Then they don't want to eat too much because they're already in that mindset for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's like, I don't want to spend all night in the bathroom or not sleeping. So they get that little bit, and that's maybe 30 minutes, because between an hour to two afterwards, they are back up here because they got that next day. And I wake up the morning of a fight. If the arena is in the building, I go downstairs because I do things better by myself before I do it with anybody else. So if the arena is in the building, I'm in the arena at 6:30 the day of the fight. And nobody knows that but me. But I do that. And I get my layout, and I get me at 6:30 in the morning, and by the time I come back down by 9 or 10 o'clock, shit, I can walk through there with my eyes closed, because from that point on, everything is so intense with everybody, from the television production to the production trucks backing up in there, the people taking the mats off, putting the mats in the dressing room, people making sure the dressing rooms are right, the water's in there, the ice in there, the trucks up to the back, the cage is up, the mats on the side of the cage, the stools in the cage, all of those things. And when that fighter comes downstairs, and I usually have everybody in the dressing room 2.5 to 3 hours before every fight, at a minimum of 2.5 hours. So that half an hour that they had this morning is gone.
Right.
They are back up here. And from the time they get in the dressing room to the time they take that walk, there's 4 different people. And nobody knows what a fighter goes through, and his mindset and what he has to do and how he is back in that room. And I know it, and I feel it, and I get the last of it when I walk them from that dressing room to that holding area, and I make it a point. I got a fight coming up in a couple of weeks. I won't jinx it by saying which fight I'm doing, because it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen, and it's a boxing event. When I do this event,
ooh, the big one.
I got one before that. Don't make me say it. Let me.
I'm not gonna make you say it, but
I got one, a female big fight before that one. But when I do this next one, it'll be fight number 406 for me.
Wow.
And in that fight, right now there are 10 fights. We may make it to 10 fights past the weigh-in. If we make it to 10 fights, that'll be 20 fighters. If I get those 20 fights, I will have walked 8,679 fighters from the dressing room to the ring, the cage, the octagon, or the dojo.
How many again?
8,679.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of fighters. It's a lot of personalities. It's a lot of stars.
Yes, sir.
It's a lot of walks.
So that's a lot. That's a lot of knowing what goes on from the time they come from their room down to that dressing room, from that dressing room to that holding area. And I have stood in front of every one of them. I can't remember the last time. I remember one, and it was a boxing match. It was a Mike Tyson boxing match with Lou Savarese. And I couldn't stand with Glover, I forgot his name, not to share because this was boxing, because I had to put a guy in the ambulance. So that was the one time I did not stand in front of a guy. So 8,679, I'd say, will be at the end of the next fight. I've stood in front of fighters before they walk down to that cage, that ring, that octagon, or that dojo. That includes sumo wrestling. To sit there and to get what that fighter feels like, and what he's had, every bit of it, he puts out in front of me before he steps out there. Every bit of it. And I mean, they release it. Not only in here, but I can see it. I'll tell you a quick one. Uriah Faber. And you know, Uriah's not a big fighter. No. He's not, Uriah is not Alistair Overeem or Brock Lesnar or Shane Carwin,
right?
Or even Anderson Silva or John Jones, or Jeremy Stevens. Uriah is, what was he, 145, 135, whatever.
Yeah.
But, I tell you how I get that guy and how that guy has that half an hour after the weigh-in, and that's all it is. And then I get him in that dressing room, and then I get him in that holding area. Well, I had Uriah Faber in that holding area. And he was the guy that made me stop from doing what I usually do. And I walked over to him face to face. And I usually say to them, your night, your fight, get it right. Ain't but two, him and you. Go get that shit done, son. And I threw my hand up, and he threw his hand up to give me a high five. Woo! That shit went from the tip of my fingers here, all through my head, my glasses, down my ankles, through my legs. You know what? I couldn't move. I was like this. And not even thinking, I revved him up to do that, and I was crazy enough to put my hand out there. And he gave it to me. Bam! Ah! Woo! I was trembling for about 5 minutes, bro. And luckily, Uriah Faber was in the red corner, so his fighter I had already walked out and came back to get him.
Right.
But man, I'll tell you one thing, that was the last time I stood that close to a fighter. before I hyped him up to get to that ring, that cage, or that dojo, or that octagon. Mm-mm. Now I stand here, that distance. I get that distance.
Yeah.
And they can hear me, and they can feel me once I get started.
Right.
I just didn't think with Uriah. I got right there. I threw my hand up, and he gave a bam. Shit, I said never, ever, ever again. But and there was and now that I think about it, even him, Jose Aldo was like that. Jeremy Stevens, Dustin Poirier. I mean, they're all different people in the holding area.
Right.
Before they take that walk. All of them. You get all of them, or you get none of them. I named some names, but I'm not gonna name the names that I've seen. I've seen them. You could, sometimes you could sit in that holding area and look in their eyes, and right away what's gonna happen when they get down there. And even if I see it or hear it, I give each one of them the same thing, the same intensity. And then I know there are guys I got to give a little more to.
Right.
So I give them a little more. But you could see it, man, and it was, who was it that I had to chase that ran out of the wrong way and ran through? Forrest Griffin.
Oh, Forrest Griffin.
I can't remember who he fought, but he didn't win the fight. And when the fight was over, he ran out the other door and ran all the way through the wrong way through the other people, and I had to run behind him and chase him to catch him, because they go when that fight's over. If they're not stretchered, and you don't ever want a guy on a stretcher coming out, but there are times when they gotta hobble out of the ring or whatever that combat arena is and get on a gurney to go to the back because their legs, something's broken or they can't walk on it. But for the most part, when they leave that, they never know where they are. Never.
That makes sense.
Never. That's why, for the most part, if you ever see somebody from the commission, always takes a fighter when he gets out of that ring, cage, octagon, JoJo, whatever it is, because no one ever knows where they are. Even after an interview, if you ever look at it, even after an interview, most of the time if you're looking for it, you can see them looking to the left or the right to kind of figure out where they got to go, because they don't. And when they get out of there, they don't know. three times I've had to chase or find somebody. And you know, those three times, whatever that crew was didn't work with me again.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody has to be on point,
Right.
because it is so poignant and it is so important, you know, that I have gone into a bathroom and seen a fighter on the floor in the bathroom, passed out. And that was because I know I hadn't seen him because once I take him to the dressing room, I still go back and check.
Right.
I know who saw a doctor who didn't see a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I know who the doctor took to the dressing room, who he didn't take to the dressing room. I
Mm-hmm.
know who a doctor kept for stitching and who he didn't keep, and how long that fighter's in there waiting to be stitching, which he ain't gonna be in there too long because I'm gonna be in there to find out.
Right.
Somebody. And I have that on my radar, all of it, in those tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
Mindset, game plan, commitment.
Right.
And I didn't see him. It wasn't that long, but long enough. And that's the first. And I said, you know what? I know I didn't see him come this way. So I went in the bathroom, and he was in there in the stall, passed out. And he wasn't sick. He just passed out from exhaustion,
Mm-hmm.
excitement, adrenaline. And this was and he won.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and but as I said to you, that I'm in the arena at 6:30 in the morning, that's a part of my 6:30 in the morning. Because I get to pay attention to everything. And it all comes back to me. You know, there are times when I'll do an event and I'll walk past something and I'll remember, you know what, this morning I saw a dolly over here and this dolly's not here now. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Or I know that there's a pipe and drape there, and I know behind there's nothing but glass or an exit or something. And fighters find those things and go up them and go out them, and just just to be doing it.
Right.
They don't care. They don't have no idea, you know, and they do it. And I'll walk past the place and I'll go back and I'll open it and I'll look in there and damn if I'll look in there and I'll be damn, there's a fighter. Go ahead. There's a fighter in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just open it and look in there and he look at me. I don't even ask him what you doing. I just give that look. They just get up and just come on with me. They don't even have their gloves off.
Right.
And then somebody in that commission is not working again.
Right.
Because that's the first thing I do. I take that fighter and I say, you stand here or I have them walk with me.
Mm-hmm.
And all I do is I go to the head of the commission and I say, I just found my fighter in that
Mm-hmm.
hall by himself. And I let that go and leave that alone. But I know who I gave him to. And I just don't take him to anybody. I take him to the head. Even if there's a fight going on, I take that guy and I stand there until the end of the round. Because there's, you know, you get that minute in between every round. Time
Right.
enough for me to get my word across.
Right.
And I let it go from there. But it's always intense, and it's always something that I get as much from an event as a guy does winning an event or more. You know, it's just win, lose, or draw. I get it, baby.
And having been there, I can tell you honestly that I understand that. And it's one thing to go as a fan, and it's another thing to go and see it behind the scenes for what it is. Like you said, the walk in, the walk out, the post fight presser,
Mm-hmm.
and everything in between. And it's very palpable. It's very palpable. Right there. You feel it. The highs, the lows, everything. The suspense and the jubilation, the down of defeat, and have just in my experience, the one that we shared at Bellator 292. Said I felt all of that, and as you said, history has a way of making you part of it, whether you know it or not. That was the
Mhm.
night Benson Henderson retired
Wow. Wow.
in my hometown of San Jose.
Wow. And
First
I
trip
had
down to the floor.
I had him before he had long hair. Before that hair was all over,
Hmm.
was all over the place. And it's Benson Henderson. If I'm not mistaken, I think I started with him in WEC.
Hmm.
I think that's where he was one of those, and that was the beginning of them little guys.
Yeah, they ran a great thing up there for the 135 pounders.
Yeah, yeah. I think the WEC brought all those little guys, and I think they brought the 55 pounders in there.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, they got
they
them
brought some
too.
of those guys in there, and it just flipped around. It just but like you said, it's and the one thing I always made sure of is that my number one has always been the fighters.
Hmm.
Period. And I say that without, you can say, oh, I'm always for the fighters, or but I 100%, like I tell you, I know what it is to take that walk. I know what it is to get on that scale and get off that scale and have that 30 minutes of gut wrenching, whatever. And then trying to sleep at night, and then got to get up in the morning and make it downstairs and be in the arena three hours before you fight, and to sit in that dressing room waiting for your fight to come and walking back and forth and nobody caring about you, the entire time. And corners care, but also most corners, they know how to give fighters space, and they give them space.
Hmm.
They do what they have to do. When he needs to warm up a little bit, they'll do that. But you know, they do what they do, what they've done all training camp and all week. I go in there and I go in there and I check and ask them if the room's right. If the commission's good.
Hmm.
If there's somebody in the commission that's shaking this dressing room up, because there's one voice in the backstage when I'm back there. One voice. And a lot of times, some people talk to fighters like they think they're fighters. And I tried to say that very nicely.
Hmm.
And to me that's disrespectful. And at night, that night or fight night, that's the last thing I want somebody to do is to talk to a fighter because they think they're a fighter, or talk to a fighter, just kind of any old way. This man's getting ready to get in there to fight.
Right.
You better back it up a little bit. that's the first. That's the first thing you probably need to do,
Right.
because I have never seen a fighter go at somebody physically, but I've seen him get ready to.
Hmm.
And I ain't talking about another fighter,
No.
and this is the people with a suit on. That's why I stopped wearing suits. All of that stuff I'm gonna put in my next book.
And the next one.
But there was a time, man, that I bought my suits with the money I made, and I that didn't last long because I don't think anybody ever remembers seeing me in a suit. But there was a time I was suited and booted, bro. And I'll tell you this quick story. What stopped me from doing that? I had a suit. I think it was the first suit that I paid. over $800 for
Ooh, had a
it. And
nice
you,
suit.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You couldn't, and I know in doing what I do and working as a coordinator, I know how people look at you. The same way I look at fighters and I look for things because I look to see who got grease in the crack of their finger when they shouldn't be, or
Mm-hmm.
grease up under here where it shouldn't be. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't even know that kind of stuff. But I know what I'm looking for. And I know that's the way people look at you. When they look at you, they look to see what kind of socks you got on. Today, it's a whole different world. But back then, they looked to see if my nails was done. So I was always aware of that. So I was always aware that when you looked at my socks, you knew that I paid money for them or I paid money for my shoes.
Right.
So I had one of those nice, whatever, 800 or whatever I paid for it, and it was a not tan, but it was a nice color suit, and it was my suit. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Roy Jones. I did a Roy Jones fight, and at the end of the fight, I went back in there that night, and I remember the fight, but don't remember who the hell Roy Jones fought. But I remember at the end of the fight, Roy Jones came over to me because he won to hug me. And I hugged Roy Jones back. And Roy Jones walked away from me, not thinking that I just hugged a wet, sweaty, greasy man with my $800 suit on. That didn't register. I know I just hugged him and walked away. And I'm walking down the hall and I see somebody walking past me, looking at me like,
What
and
is
when
this?
I walked in the next room, I saw his whole body on the front of my suit. I saw everything but his nipples up here. I saw his thighs down there. I saw
Yeah.
that whole hug was on me and right here on my arms was his arm
Right.
between the sweat and the grease. And guess what? That shit didn't come out. It didn't come out. And if Roy Jones hears this, he'll probably hear this for the first time. But I will never forget that, and didn't remember who he fought, but I remembered he messed my suit up. And I took that suit home and put that suit in the cleaners, and they got some of it out, but whatever grease or whatever
Mm-hmm.
oil or whatever, there was blood in it. And it was after a fight. That was the last time I wore a suit to a fight.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Because that was
You
that
know?
was one of the things I noticed about the way, and I said, okay, we got the commission here, we got Scott over there, we got some of the media, and then we got this brother who done rolled up in a tracksuit. Said
Yes,
and
sir.
walked in here the most natural thing in the world, and I just said, "Oh,
Like
this is different. I wasn't expecting this. Let's
like
see
he
how this
owned it.
turns
Like
out."
he owned it.
Yeah, say this
Like
show night, it's show fight. Get it right,
get
baby.
it
We
right
rolling.
all night long. But you know what? It was that lesson for me. That was the last time that I wore a suit to an event. From that point on, I always made sure I looked like I was supposed to be there, but I was fight ready. I was comfort ready. And if somebody came to hug, even that I stopped wearing suits, somebody came to hug, I hugged like this, Or if I saw him coming, the first thing I did was like this. A couple of times, Anderson Silva caught me from behind like this. A couple of them caught me from behind, but most of the parts I do this and I catch them. But I also do that because I want to remember. I told you that 8,679 sticks in there, man. And that's all that they're all fighters. They're all fighters. And I damn sure could not name all of them. But if you do the math of that 406 at an average of 9 fights, even 9 fights, I see something here. Am I reading that?
Yes, you
One of
are.
the
It's Cade Money Morehouse. One of the best captured moments I have is you hyping Cyborg up at Bellator 300 and walking her out. That was one of my favorite events I ever went to and covered.
Cyborg. Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What's up, baby? Cave. Yeah, that was she's definitely, I think she got a fight coming up.
Yeah, she does actually.
I think she's got one. I know that there's a lot of changes over in that PFL, and Bellator is no longer anymore. Uh but I just hope that they maintain the stamina and consistency that they got now. And I'm trying to say this very nicely, because I've always told you that I'm always 100% on the fighters, man.
Right.
And I'd hate to see these fighters fighting to get a spot in another organization. I almost said it. I almost said the
Mhm.
organization I'm talking about. But
Right.
but they're good. PFL is doing a good job. UFC does a good job. And these guys are staying busy, and these guys are getting active, and the fighters, the organizations that are moving, the fighters that have earned that time, luckily, knock on wood, they are getting placed in positions. I'm wishing my boy Patricio all the luck in the world, but I'm sure, it's going to turn out all right for him.
Mhm.
But I love seeing these guys get it, man. And I love to see
Right.
them taken care of and keep moving, and sustaining, because it is no joke. And a guy makes it past 10, 11 years in this sport, you gotta love him, man.
Yeah.
You gotta wish the best for him, because it's these young boys and all this young stuff that's coming up, and the competition is so stiff, and it's harder now. When they get to that certain age, it gets a little harder. But I'm wishing them all the best, man, because it is the best sport in the world,
For
combat
sure.
sport, bar
For
none.
sure.
Yes, sir.
For sure. So I because we got into this, I found some things that I wanted to ask you about. So we got the back section because we know we're gonna skip the chapters for just a hot second. Because we already know that one of the things that Burt is preaches the most is stay steady on studying people, learning, listening, and setting expectations.
Yes, sir.
But we're gonna parlay that into Burtisms and the creed. So rather than I want to know which one of these is your favorite Burtism, because I've heard quite a few of these, but I want to know which one is your favorite because everybody got a favorite saying.
A bunch of crumbs make a full meal. That's my number one,
That
and
would
that's
make
my
sense.
favorite.
That would
And
make
and
sense.
for everything and anything you do in life, everything you do is a crumb, regardless of how you do it or when you do it. It's a crumb. And a bunch of those crumbs together at the end of the day make a full meal. Right now, I'm eating my meal, but I've had those crumbs. So that's my
Mhm.
favorite. And then the one where I say we are men and women first, and then we are our personalities.
Yes.
Those two are absolutely my favorites of all. But everything else, it's they're Burtisms, but I say them as I go along because I know them. It's like your fight, your night, get it right, I'm done. Ain't but two, him and you. This is what we do and why we do it. Nobody does it any better than we do.
I'll be like, "Yeah, stop. You over here talking dirty to me, Bert. I can listen to this all day." I was just that's right.
it's
Just give him a little sample, a little taste.
yes, and it's easy. I spoke to and I love speaking to classes and schools. I am trying now to get affiliated with HBCUs. Because I love speaking to students, and it's very easy to speak on what you know, more so than what you read from a book.
Right.
It's very easy, but it's also very easy to forget. And young people, speaking of you, when I say young people,
right.
I won't say they forget. I just say they don't remember. Okay, that's the same thing. But what?
Right.
I don't want to say you forget, but I'm saying they don't remember. But if we remember those things and everything, it's like if we men, when I speak to men, and all men, not just men of color or fighters or basketball players, or just men in general. And I say to them, you treat your life like you do your woman. You use the same intensity in going after something in life as you do chasing tail. And I was nice with that word. Okay? Because no is not an answer.
No.
You don't take no. You go here and you get slapped. You know what? You're right back. Yeah, baby. Okay. Send it again. She's like, no. You're like, okay, yeah. Uh-huh. No is not even, there's no such thing as no. The commitment, the tenacity, the stick-to-itiveness, all those same things that you put into chasing a woman, put those things into your life and your life experiences and see how far you get with it. Simple as that, baby. Take those same skills, because we are skilled at that.
Yes.
Very skilled. I don't care if you're 14 years old, that's when you start learning them skills. 12, 13, them skills, you start honing them a little bit.
Right.
And then when you get okay. And then when you get in college, it's like, yeah, skills, them same skills. Take that same tenacity. And then I switch it around to women to use that same tenacity of no in your life skills. It is very easy to say, no, you're not, and you stick to it. How many times? I mean, I'm sure men have passed. Man, that's some work. You ain't getting nowhere with that.
Nowhere with that. Good luck.
That ain't happening.
Right.
Or you say to your partner, shit. Shit. Man, ain't no way. Because you know how she is.
Right.
And I say when I speak to females that same respect of your integrity, that same respect of the person that you are, the same respect that you should get from people in life and at the workplace, period. Yeah. And that's easy to get. You just turn no to no. But no is no.
No is no.
But you know how to do it. You
Yeah.
know who you gonna tell no because you don't want him to come back, or who you gonna say no to because you want him to try a little harder.
Right.
Do the same thing in life. Process of preparation, getting ready to prepare. Same thing. It's all the same. Life skills, mindset, game plan, commitment. It's all the same. Man, woman, young boy, young man, ghetto child, from the hills of Beverly Hills, or
Right.
hood rat. All the same. I said in my book, I'm a hood rat with an education. My brother
Yes,
said,
sir.
wait a minute now. I said, no, wait. I know who I am.
Right.
I'm not telling you who I'm pretending to be because I
Right.
know who I am.
Yes, sir.
And you know what? At this point, shit, shucks. I've lived it, son, and I'm happy that I have and that I'm able to. I'm a cancer survivor twice, and man, you you don't like I say I didn't read that in a book because I didn't, because I've lived it and I know it, and it's I'm happy that I can say it with a commitment that it's the truth, that it's something that I was able to put down because I had it put on me. And I've had some stuff put on me.
Yes, sir. If
I
you
worked
live life long enough, everybody has.
shit. I worked with I mean from Don King, Bob Arum, Butch Lewis, Cedric Kushner, you name them. Somehow, somewhere, I've been around or have worked with, from Mexico to Paris to France to Bellator to UFC. It's, and I'm still like, wow, damn, still learning, bro. I'm still learning and still ducking and dodging. But I appreciate young men like yourself and some of the things and your listening audience and people that take the time to sit and listen, because you're only gonna hear it if you listen.
Yes, sir.
Plain and simple.
And so that'll bring me to the one that I found because I had a birdism as I went through these, but this particular one in life, love, and work, when you set the bar,
Boy,
please don't be afraid of heights. That bar gets higher and higher all by itself. And once you set that bar, you're going to be up there all by yourself, whether you want to or not.
or not. All by your damn self. But I didn't want to put that in the book. I didn't want to put damn self in that book. But yes, set that bar, and most of us don't know that we're afraid of height until we set that bar to a certain level.
Right.
And then you're afraid of heights. And when you find out at that level, it's like, damn, what the hell am I gonna do now?
Too late.
Shit, I can't get down because I'm afraid to go down
Right.
because I'm up here. And then you say to yourself, well, how the hell did I get up here in the first place? That's just that one is one of mine because I am afraid of heights.
Mm-hmm.
And that brought that into reality for me about setting that bar so high. Yes, sir. Well, you hit home on that one, baby.
I told you I was going. I told you I was going to get him.
Yeah,
Wasn't going to miss one.
yeah, you hit home on that. That one hit it.
Wasn't gonna miss one. Bert, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you about your book.
Yes, sir.
Not just the book itself, the stories, the wisdom, because what you don't get from this conversation is the full depth of all the knowledge that Burt Watson has to share, the experiences he has to share, some of the funny stories he has to share, but all of the book is something that you can apply to each and every one of your individual lives, some paths to success, goal setting, mindsets, willpower, all of that stuff. It's so much more encompassing than what it looks like on the cover because it's just a smiling Burt Watson and everything that comes with it.
Yes, sir. I truly appreciate it, Phil, and uh, you know, I'm very appreciative of your support. And for anyone that does go to Amazon and get that book, please, I hope you enjoy it and read it for what it is. It's stories that I lived and not stories that I made up. Stories I didn't read in a book.
And as he said it's not every day that you get to see a historian that never studied a book. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, sir.
Burt Watson, Phil Robinson. This is the
Appreciate you.
Combat Lounge, and we're out.
Now fires back. Oh, there's fury